Thank you, Donald, and good evening, everybody. Well, MPs today, by a massive majority, approved Theresa May's plan to hold this general election on the 8th of June. It's happening. It's game on. Are you excited? Well, a lot of people are. To be fair, though, quite a lot are saying, why are we having yet another election? We seem to be asked to go to the polls every single year. But the question I want to ask tonight is, should Brexit be the deciding factor when it comes to your vote on the 8th of June? Now, the positioning thus far is that Theresa May is making it absolutely clear that she's calling this election because she wants to have a mandate. She says it will strengthen her hand when it comes to negotiating in Brussels. She wants to achieve control of our laws and our borders. Mind you, she said that for 6 years as Home Secretary and didn't really deliver. She will also, of course, add in the point about grammar schools in the Conservative manifesto, something David Cameron would never have countenanced. But the May campaign this is all about Brexit. It's all about giving me a strong hand. As for Labour, well, Jeremy Corbyn, and we saw this today at Prime Minister's Questions, he's going to campaign on austerity. He says there's too much austerity, it's hurting the country. He's going to talk about the crisis in the NHS. He's going to talk about low wages. When it comes to Brexit, I have to say I don't, for the life of me, really know what the Labour Party's position is. So perhaps somebody can ring in and help me with that. The Liberal Democrats, well, Tim Farron is perfectly clear. He says he accepts the result of the referendum, but will do everything he can to keep us as part of the European Union's single market, and he'll fight for a second referendum on the final EU deal. And UKIP, well, UKIP are going to fight this principally on immigration against the Home Secretary, who did not do well on this issue. And they're going to say, we need dramatic cuts to immigration, we need numbers. And they'll challenge the Tory party. Do you still stick to cutting immigration to tens of thousands a year? And UKIP will make the point that if that doesn't happen, then effectively Brexit voters will have been betrayed. So that's where the parties are. But I'm asking you, will Brexit be the deciding factor when you come to vote? And if you think that, yeah, this referendum, this election is like another referendum, and I'm going to vote on Brexit and to hell with anything else, then call me on 0345 6060 973. If you think that low wages, the NHS, free school meals, if they're your issues, then text at 84850. If, frankly, you're finding it really difficult to muster much enthusiasm for even voting at all in this election, then of course you can tweet using the hashtag Farage and LBC at LBC. You can watch the show live on LBC's Facebook page now, and I'll go straight to our first caller, Lee from Bedford. Lee, is this for you a Brexit election? Is it like another referendum? Will it be the biggest issue, biggest factor that decides where you're going to vote?
Well, Nigel, it's going to be half and half.
Right. Half, so half Brexit.
Yep.
And what's the other half for you?
Other things like NHS, education, defence,
Yep.
foreign aid. Hopefully Theresa May will scrap the 0.7% that Cameron put in and use it towards the NHS.
Right, so you're leaning towards Theresa May before we even start, are you?
A little bit.
A little bit, right. And, OK, so you're 50-50, so you're really going to treat this like a normal general election, but you would accept that the biggest single factor is Brexit?
Yes.
Fine. Lee, thank you very much indeed. Perfectly clear. Neil in Fulham, is Brexit the issue for you in this election, or do other things really turn you on?
Nigel, I'm first going to say, what a pleasure it is to meet you, and what an amazing thing you've done for our country.
Well, that's very sweet of you, Neil. Thank you.
For 40 years. Thank you very much. No, Theresa May has already set the goalpost. She's defined it as Brexit being the main issue, to give her the power that she needs and the strength behind her to get legislation through. Now, I think UKIP has to find MPs, suitable prospective MPs to stand against those Ramonas, such as Ken Clarke. Otherwise, people in those areas don't have a choice.
Yeah. OK. Now, I get the point that UKIP needs to focus on the Remainers as you call them. But your point, Neil, about Theresa May needs a strong hand to get legislation through, well, she hadn't been stopped from getting any legislation through. I mean, isn't this slightly a myth that we're getting from the Prime Minister, that unless she has a bigger majority, unless she has her own mandate, that somehow the House of Commons and the House of Lords are going to stop her? Because whilst they did frustrate and delay the process by a week or two, the truth is she hasn't lost a single significant vote. Isn't that, Neil, just the excuse she's using to try and take advantage of the fact that Labour are very weak in the polls, and that who knows what the Crown Prosecution Service might do a few weeks or months down the road?
I'm ignoring those side issues as noise, really. The main factor is that she needs to get this legislation through. It's absolutely essential. If there are dissenters in her party, and we know there are,
yep,
then we have to get rid of them. And this is where UKIP, as I say, must play a pivotal role in putting people up to stand against these Ramonas in these constituencies. If my MP was Ken Clarke and I voted Conservative, status quo. Nothing
yep,
changes.
Yep.
She needs that. She needs the majority to get these things through, and it's absolutely essential that this happens.
So should she should she, Neil, in your view, sort of purge the Ken Clarks and people like that?
Well, I would.
You would, okay, Neil, there's a real Brexiteer speaking. Thank you. Ken Clarke, by the way, is standing again. He's been a Member of Parliament since 1970, but he's going to have another go. And whether you agree or disagree with Ken's politics, I have to say he does generally, I think, make the place a bit brighter and a little bit more interesting. But I wonder, you know, when people were asked the question that would you treat this election as another referendum, 67% said no. But I still think it is going to be absolutely the dominant factor. And in many ways, I think it should be the dominant factor in this election. It is, after all, the biggest constitutional change we're going to see in our lifetimes. That's my view. I wonder what Tony in Woodford makes of that.
Hi, Nigel.
Hi.
I just think it's a deception. It's a smokescreen from what's really going on in the country. Look, the people have already voted. We're out, and that's it. Well, I do not agree with what Theresa May has said. You know, she needs to make her hands strong. She can negotiate. She's got 2 years to get things and prepare things. You know, it's just that ordinary people are suffering in this country, and, you know, to turn it into a Brexit kind of, you know, bringing the government back on the Brexit line is, to me, is just an absolute smokescreen.
Well, you know, I mean, she's saying, firstly, she needs a stronger hand to stop her being obstructed in Westminster. But my point is, she has not been obstructed by Westminster at all. She was delayed a little bit, so that clearly isn't the case. Her second argument is this will strengthen her hand in negotiations when she gets over to Brussels to do this. But actually, given that there now won't be a general election until 3 years after the Brexit date, actually, rather than giving her the position where she'll strengthen our negotiations on Brexit, I actually rather suspect, Tony, she might soften it a little bit. And maybe the real smokescreen is that this is somebody running to get a massive majority on paper, as it stands at the minute, as Prime Minister, doing it saying, I'll see Brexit through, I'll get back control of our borders, but in reality will do much the same as she did as Home Secretary and deliver almost none of it. Or, Tony, am I too cynical?
No, I think you're absolutely spot on, but I would not underestimate or write off Jeremy Corbyn. I mean, everyone thought Donald Trump was a complete joke, would never get anywhere, and look what happened. If Corbyn can get momentum and bring up about, you know, what's happening in the country, the state of the NHS, and really keep playing that card, I think he could come through. I
mean, that's fine, Tony, but at least Donald Trump could do his tie up straight, you know, which Mr Corbyn seems to be wholly incapable of. And you might say to me, why does that matter? Actually, it does. And the other point about Trump is his messaging was absolutely clear. You knew where he stood on every issue. Whether you found his views tough to stomach or not is not the point. You knew where he stood. And I asked the question at the start of this programme, can somebody help me, please? Someone tell me what the Labour Party's real position is on Brexit. I think he's got no chance.
Well, I'm a bit unsure, but look, he's got 7 weeks to get something together and to prove that he is ready and is going to be at least an effective opposition up until it's decided, whether the Tories are back in or not. So, I just think we should see what happens.
Tony, you're quite right, because, if this time last year we'd said that Leicester City were going to win the Premiership, Trump was going to become the US president, Brexit would happen, and the Italian Prime Minister would lose a referendum and have to resign, we would have been thought absolutely bonkers. And you're right. In the course of the next 6.5 weeks, there could be huge surprises. But I think for this election to have even an element of unpredictability, Theresa May would have to do something dramatically and stupidly bad and wrong. And I, Tony, just don't see it. But I take your point, and like a lot of callers, Tony actually sees quite a lot of good in Jeremy Corbyn, thinks he's very sincere. We had calls on that last night. Mohammed in Aberystwyth. Tell me, Mohammed, is Brexit going to be the dominant issue?
I think, Nigel, is definitely going to be the dominant issue. However, I think the elections, they might be a bit poorly planned. I'm a Conservative myself.
Yep.
However, I don't think this was a good time to put the elections in because, the country's just gone through Brexit. We just had the Article 50 being triggered, etc.
Yep.
And I think we need more time. And now, I think the real winners of this election is going to be the SNP and the Liberal Democrats. Now, think about it for a minute. You can call it an unholy alliance if you want, the SNP, Liberal Democrats, and the Labour Party against the Conservative Party. You know yourself that for the last 25 years you worked really hard to get Britain out of Europe, and the likes of the Liberal Democrats and the likes of people in the Labour Party and even in the SNP will block you, and that will give Britain an extremely weak hand at negotiating with Europe. I mean, Europe is weak itself. But if Theresa May was to win with, an increased majority, we could go in there as such with guns blazing and, argue from a position of strength. But I can't see it happening. I'm not sure what's going to happen.
But barring Mohammed, barring her losing her majority, and I talked last night extensively about the Crown Prosecution Service and possibly 30 people going to face charges, barring that, she hadn't lost any votes in Westminster. There was no prospect, Mohammed, of her losing any votes in Westminster. I'm not sure. I like the idea of a general election coming up shortly after the Brexit process finished. I feel an extra 3 years has bought her time. Mohammed, my fear is we finish up with transitional arrangements and goodness knows what else. But I thank you for your point. Right now, you're listening to The Nigel Farage Show, exclusively on LBC. It's 7:15.
Nick Ferrari at breakfast on LBC. Joined now by Home Secretary Amber Rudd, and not for a moment suggesting that Brenda from Bristol is wholly representative. You've probably heard about her. She's gone viral, as it's called. This is her response when told that there's another general election on the way.
You're joking. Not another one? I can't stand this.
Well, I would urge Brenda to make sure she's got a postal vote.
On the subject of debates, it's reported that Mrs May will not be taking part in any televised debate.
Just the question of debates isn't necessarily the excitement and the highlight that everybody thinks it is. There'll be plenty of opportunities for discussion and debate of a different sort during the next few weeks.
Nick Ferrari at breakfast every weekday morning from 7, only on LBC.
With Hampton by Hilton, now open in Aberdeen.
What do you think of when someone says the word used? Old-fashioned? Out of tune? A bit scratched? Something past its best. Chances are you're not thinking of a Mercedes-Benz. And certainly not one of the latest models. Think Mercedes-Benz approved used. Suddenly, there's a lot more meaning to that little word. Visit your local retailer to find your used car today, and you'll see what I mean.
I like the way you work it.
Mercedes-Benz approved used. Used, but not what you're used to.
Westway. It's the Cared For used car event, now on at Westway Nissan, with up to 33% list price savings on a huge range of quality used and nearly new Nissans. Plus, selected models get up to 2 years free servicing. And at Westway, there's an up to £750 finance deposit contribution. Hurry, for way more Nissan value than you bargained for. Don't miss Westway Nissan's Cared For used car event.
Google Westway Nissan today.
Representative 9.9% APR finance, subject to status. Free servicing only when you buy with Nissan Finance.
When you're designing your new kitchen with Mobalpa, it's easy to get carried away. And we say, why not? With free fitting on all Mobalpa kitchens ordered during April, you can afford to spend a little more on the kitchen itself. After all, it's something you'll live with and love for years to come. To claim your free fitting, find your nearest Mobalpa kitchen studio at mobalpa.co.uk. Minimum spend and exclusions apply.
Come to Galliard for brand new apartments at Orchard Wharf, London E14 from under £400,000 with estimated yields of up to 4.3% and deposits spread over 2 years. Orchard Wharf is only a 5-minute walk from the DLR, where you can connect to the tube in 2 minutes and arrive at Canary Wharf and next year's Crossrail in just 4 minutes. We're priced to sell and will fully furnish your apartment free of charge. Join us on Thursday the 20th of April from 5 p.m. till 5 p.m. Saturday the 22nd of April at the Crown Plaza Hotel XL, London E16 1AL. Call 0203 770 6300 or visit galliardhomes.com. That's galliardhomes.com.
Sitting at a desk for long hours in the wrong type of chair can be very hard on your back. But how do you choose the office chair that's right for you? Back2 is the answer. We offer a wide range of office chairs, sit-stand desks and professional no-obligation advice. Too busy? No problem. We'll carry out a workstation assessment in your office. Back2, open every day in Wigmore Street and online at back2.co.uk. Get back to business with Back2, the office chair experts.
The Nigel Farage Show on LBC. Call 0345 6060 973.
It's happening. Parliament approves the Prime Minister's plans. We are having a general election. It's happening on June the 8th, whether you like it or not. And I'm asking you, should Brexit be the deciding factor when it comes to your vote? I'm also asking you, can you be bothered to vote? Do you feel you've been asked enough? Do you feel, actually, given that they've got a 20-point lead in the polls, the Tories are going to win anyway, so what's the point of any of it? Now, I always ask you to send in texts and tweets and Facebook messages. Says any fair? I read them out. Jack says, UKIP has run its course. No real option other than the Tories, unfortunately. Well, we'll see about that, Jack. Paul says we need a strong government to deliver Brexit. Max says the danger will come from Ramona's voting Lib Dem. And I asked earlier, could somebody help me, please? Somebody tell me what the Labour Party's position on Brexit is, because I'm confused. Maud Imbued helps me by saying, Nigel, in strictest confidence, Labour's position is difficult. Yes, Maud, thank you very much indeed for that. Richard Simcox tweets in and says, Nigel, you stood down too early. Big mistake. You need to get back in the fight quickly. Thanks, mate. Really helpful. I get two main issues, immigration and police funding, both of which she performed very badly at for 6 years, says OJ. And I get the last one I'm going to read out now is, Nigel, this is an exciting, great opportunity for the country to show Labour it's finished. Also to show Sturgeon that the majority of Scots are unhappy with Indy Ref 2, Andy from Falkirk. Laura in Wakefield, good evening. Is Brexit going to be the big deciding issue for you? Can you be bothered to vote at all, Laura?
I would never say I can't be bothered to vote because I believe it's too important that we've got that right. So I'm considering going to the polls and spoiling my ballot.
Are you? Tell me why.
Well, because, people always complain that there is none of the above option. And I think it's important that I do go and use my democratic right. But to be honest, I've been politically active from the age of about 15 or 16. I voted Conservative for my entire adult life till the last election when I voted UKIP because I met the local UKIP candidate while campaigning for the referendum, and I thought he's a really sound guy. I really like him, and I'm going to vote for him. And if he was an independent, I would probably vote for him. But I just think that this election is going to be run like a referendum, and the referendum was run like a general election. I mean, how many times are we getting on the debates? How many times are we getting, what's it going to look like? What are the policies? It's not a general election. They didn't need to put forward policies. They needed to put forward arguments for or against being in the EU.
Yep.
So now we're going to get something where they should be putting forward policies on how to run the country, which is going to be arguments about for or against being in the EU, which seems mad to me.
Well, Laura, they will all issue manifestos, and it's pretty clear from Labour's line of attack that they, and it could be their only embarrassment because they're split on the issue, but, I mean, make no bones about it, that Corbyn is going to try very, very hard. to talk about putting VAT on private school fees. He's going to start talking about the crisis in the NHS, about low wages. So, there will be debate on other issues too, Laura.
Yeah, and I just think they're going to get pushed aside, and it's going to... There's too much of a slickness about British politics, which is what people were expecting in the referendum, when actually the thing that won out was the grassroots arguments, the arguments from real people saying, actually, this is what's going to affect me. You went on the flotilla on the Thames. Well, my husband is from he's from North Shields, which was featured in Brexit the movie.
Uh-huh.
That issue of fishing really affected our family. Well, it doesn't personally affect it, but we felt very affected by it because he's literally seen the community that he grew up in just
all right,
wither
Laura.
and die.
Well, there's an issue then. Surely you should ask your candidates who are going to be standing in Wakefield, do they want to take back Britain's 200-mile territorial fishing limits? That'd be something for you to vote for or against, wouldn't it?
Yes, but then again, we go back to this is about the EU referendum. It's not about that in the next 5 years, and that will be an issue. But actually, that issue should have been dealt with within the referendum.
I can't change the past, Laura. I can't, and I can't change the present either. but at some point, you're going to have to decide what to do. I don't think somebody that's been politically active, like you, since they were 15 or 16, is going to go along and spoil a paper. I think you'd feel guilty and bad about doing it. But I thank you very much indeed for your call. Nathaniel in Dover, is Brexit going to dominate?
Hi, Nigel.
Hi.
Not for me. I think the government are going to manipulate people into making the Brexit about the problem, about the election, rather than the more important issues about what's affecting people next door to them or what's affecting people just up the road from them, because there's no point going through the negotiations if we haven't got a country what's got strong infrastructure to prepare to adapt and to change to what people voted in the Brexit negotiations. We don't even know what it's going to look like yet. So for them to do that, I think is just pure manipulation and is deviating from the real issues in this country, I think, personally, like poverty, homelessness, that sort of thing.
Well, she certainly set out... She set out her stall. She set the whole thing around Brexit, hasn't she? I mean, that's absolutely true. I mean, there will be more to come in the manifesto. But presumably, Nathaniel, in Dover, an issue like immigration must be absolutely at the top of people's concerns.
Yeah, it is, and you're not wrong. But I think that's a separate issue from Brexit. Obviously, you've got the freedom of movement, but I think that is aside, because you've also got to encourage people who are already here. You need to try and encourage the communities actually to get on a little bit rather than, looking at that person and thinking, oh, I don't like him, I don't understand him. Rather than that, I think it's more important to look at them and go, OK, we're here, we're working together, now how can we actually improve the area together?
What is the one thing, Nathaniel, that really, above all, what is the one thing that'll make you decide which way to vote?
What will make me decide? What will make? I mean, those who are struggling, those who've got nothing. That's the thing I'm going to look towards.
So you're looking at jobs, benefits, etc.
Housing.
Yeah,
that sort of thing.
Yep. OK, Nathaniel, thank you. So Nathaniel viewing this very much, indeed, as a traditional general election, I would say. Anna in Doncaster. Is Brexit...
Hello, Nigel.
Hello, how are you?
I'm very well. It's a pleasure to speak to you. Can I just say we've got a local election before the general election. I don't want to swerve off the issue. And I would urge everyone who's got a local election coming up to vote UKIP.
No. Anna, we don't do party political broadcasts here. No, we simply can't. Now, your messages still coming in. Over the last few months, you've been saying she should call an election. Now you're saying she's buying time. Bit confused. No, I've said for the last 6 months that I thought she should call an election. It made sense. It would legitimise her. It would give her a chance to go out and do the Brexit job properly. My concern is that she called it now at a time when it's become clear to me in the last few weeks that actually her position is softening on a whole load of things, such as she doesn't want to take back our fishing waters. She's happy for the European Court of Justice to continue to have say over this country. So I'm worried now that actually this election isn't about having a hard Brexit, it's about getting a soft Brexit. We'll see. Derek on Facebook says, I shall be supporting an anti-Brexit party such as the Lib Dems, previously a Conservative voter. Derek, you're not alone. I don't think there are vast numbers of you, but you're not alone. Anne says, I voted UKIP last time, but I'm going Tory just to make sure Labour doesn't win. And I get that, but you might find in 5 or 6 weekends' time that the gap between the two is so big. This could be the first election, for 30 years in which we know the result before we even go to vote. Richard says the Lib Dems will not be able to stop Brexit like people seem to think. I'm sure, Richard, that is absolutely true. I'm going to go to Sue in Cheam. Sue, what is going to make your mind up as to how to vote in this election?
Well, Nigel, thank you for taking my call. I'm confused of Cheam at the moment. I phoned up yesterday to LBC when I heard Theresa May's speech to say that I was definitely going to vote Tory after years of blocking them, trying to block them in Cheam by voting a Lib Dem. But at the same time, now I've thought I was going to vote for Theresa May. I'm hearing a whole load of stuff that we're not being told, and this is why I'm calling you, because you're the one person I feel who will actually speak the truth, and I want to know what is her hidden agenda, because I'm a bit scared about what she might do to all the issues you just mentioned, the fishing, the health service is one of the big ones that we're all worried about. There's a whole load of stuff. She's surfing on the Brexit thing, but I want to know what she's really about.
I mean, Sue, if she gets a massive majority, there are some commentators suggesting that if you look at the numbers, that could become a 140-seat majority, let's say. By doing that, she actually neutralises the really hard-line Eurosceptics in her own party. She was a Remainer. She is very much a career politician. How many times did she tell us there wasn't going to be an election and now there is one? And I guess, Sue, that's my concern, is that she's really wrapping herself in the Brexit message as far as this campaign's concerned.
Yeah, Nigel...
But I'm worried.
One thing that I recall was that when, from previous jobs that she's done, she always seemed to be the one person that everybody turned on. They wanted to get rid of her so many times, as far as my perception is, that they didn't reckon her at all about any of the jobs that she held. And now, I thought she'd turned everything around and come good with this Brexit and all the rest of it. But now I'm beginning to wonder if she's really a wolf in sheep's clothing.
Well, Sue, I could be wrong with my concerns. Maybe the Prime Minister is an absolute, total, genuine convert to the Brexit cause and Brexit message. If that's the case, why have I heard all these worrying signals over the course of the last few weeks? Sue, confused of Cheam, I thank you for your call. If there's anything that you want to hear, that you've heard already, that you would disagree with, then don't be frightened to pick up the phone and come and have a go. You're listening to The Nigel Farage Show, exclusively on LBC. It's 7:30 and time for the news with Rupert Bartier.
The Prime Minister has welcomed an overwhelming vote by MPs in favour of a snap general election on the 8th of June. Meanwhile, Theresa May is being accused of trying to run away from scrutiny for refusing to take part in any TV debates ahead of the election. 3 police officers have been hurt in an explosion at a property in North London. Another man is in a life-threatening condition in hospital. It happened after emergency crews were called to a disturbance involving bailiffs in Stroud Green. And tens of thousands of commuters are facing disruption this evening because London Euston Station is closed after a line-side fire. Network Rail says disruption is likely until at least 8 o'clock this evening. LBC weather. Cloudy with the odd shower possible into the evening in northern parts. Dry and clear elsewhere. A low of 5 Celsius. Tomorrow, cloudy with sunny spells. A high of 16 degrees.
LBC Travel. Good evening. I'm Andy Lake. Well, London Midland and Virgin Trains West Coast remain suspended to and from Euston because of a fire near the tracks earlier on today, and Southern are suspended between Clapham Junction and Milton Keynes Central. London Overground also suspended between Euston and Harrow and Wealdstone, leaving no service between Richmond and Williston Junction, and severe delays between Clapham Junction and Stratford. Onto the tubes now. The Bakerloo line is suspended between Queen's Park and Harrow and Wealdstone, and the Circle line is suspended anti-clockwise. The District and Hammersmith and City lines also badly delayed through Barking. Onto the roads now. In London, the Parkway in Cranford is closed between the High Street and the Jolly Waggoners roundabout. That's because of a serious collision causing long delays around Heathrow Airport. In Bedfordshire, the M1 is crawling northbound between Junction 10 for Luton Airport and 11 for Dunstable. The inside lane of 3 is closed because of an accident, and severe delays in Lancashire on the M6. It's stationary northbound between 27 for Standish and 28 for Leyland because a collision has seen the road blocked. For more real-time traffic updates, go to lbc.co.uk.
This is LBC.
Are you confused about PPI?
At PPI Hotline, we want to give you the facts. There is absolutely every reason to check you had PPI. Even if you think you never have, we can help you find out, as you could be owed thousands. And now there's a deadline. We just need the name of the bank you've had loans or credit cards with, and we'll check for free. So find out now if you're owed by texting check to 82222.
PPI Hotline. Text check to 82222.
Critics are calling New Movie Their Finest one of the best films of the year and a 5-star comedy in Britain's darkest hour.
England is at war.
The nation needed one actor to bring a little humour.
We all have a part to play in defeating Hitler.
Not this part. He's dead before the end of Act 3.
Bill Nye is brilliantly funny.
I'm awfully good.
It's a top-notch British movie starring Gemma Arterton, Sam Claflin and Bill Nye. Their Finest in cinemas April 21st.
Whether you're looking to get to Barnet with the wind in your hair or to hammer down to Hammersmith, if Piccadilly's like a circus or you need to trim your time to Shepherd's Bush, when you want to wing it to the Angel and beat the herd to the Elephant and Castle, whether it's tapping into the knowledge or breezing down the bus lanes, no one knows London like black cab drivers. My Taxi, the Black Cab app.
A tummy full of yummy breakfast? Good, you're going to need all the fuel you can get, kiddo. Today is the big one. Belt in, braces on, bow tie tied, looking sharp. Bing! Now for your dancing shoes. Quick polish, triple knot, and bound out the door of the family room. It's party time! Happy 90th birthday, great Aunt Mabel. You don't look a day over 82. Whatever your story, this is a great place to start. Premier Inn. Premier U.
Breakfast prices and options may vary. Exclude certain locations.
Here at the Claims Guys, we'd like to offer this assurance to anyone worried by the deadline on PPI claims. There is still time to make your claim. Our experts will work fast to discover if you were ever sold PPI. And once we've completed your free PPI check, you can then pursue your own claim or let us do it for you. It's your choice. Even if you can't find any paperwork, just text the word EASY to 60777 and let the Claims Guys do the rest. Text EASY to 60777 now.
The Claims Guys.
Leading Britain's conversation. The Nigel Farage Show. Tweet at LBC using the hashtag #FarageOnLBC.
We've got a general election coming, whether you like it or not, whether you're motivated by Brexit as the main issue, or perhaps other things, or maybe you're one of those people who simply thinks we shouldn't be being asked to vote again. I have to say, the one prediction I will make is that the turnout in this election will be significantly lower than it was for the referendum last year. I'm pretty certain of that. And, of course, people coming and going. So Alan Johnson, Labour, has decided to retire. Gisela Stewart, Labour, one of the few handful of Brexit Labour MPs, she's standing down. Ken Clarke, as I've said already, is going again. But the one that pleases me on a personal level is our pasty-faced former Chancellor, George Osborne, is to quit as MP for Tatton at the next election. I'm pleased about that because I didn't think he behaved very well during the Brexit campaign. But something else that's interesting. Back in the early 60s, the Americans started the idea of presidential television debates, and those that study this will know that it was Kennedy versus Nixon, and the criticism was that Kennedy looked cool and Nixon looked a bit podgy and a bit sweaty and could have done with a shave beforehand. But ever since that election, debates have been a massive thing in American presidential campaigns, and I, in fact, attended some of them that took place between Trump and Clinton. And we've kind of got used to them in this country because we had them in 2010, we had them in 2015, and indeed, the first one that I really took part in was Nick Ferrari hosted a debate between me and the then Deputy Prime Minister Nick Clegg in the run-up to the European elections of that year. I have to say, going onto that stage against the Deputy Prime Minister was probably, at that moment in time, the most nerve-wracking experience of my life. That's until I took part in the leaders' debates in 2015 in the general election, and they are very nerve-wracking. And, yeah, sometimes people play safe, sometimes they don't, but I think it is actually, I believe, it's a bit more than just theatre. I think under real pressure, you see what people are genuinely like. And I think we now have an expectation and a desire that leaders' debate should happen in this country. My only criticism of last time is there were simply too many parties represented. One of them, who was represented, had got fewer than 200,000 votes in the previous general election. And, you know, if you live in North Wales, Plaid Cymru might be an important party, but it's not actually for the whole of the United Kingdom. Interesting, isn't it, that Downing Street are absolutely outright rejecting the idea that Theresa May will take part in leaders' debates. They did it yesterday. Now, there is a Sky poll out today showing that 64% of people believe there should be televised debates between the party leaders, with 30% or so opposed. So a big majority want to see these debates. I wonder, of the 30% opposed, how many of those actually are non-voters and just hate politics completely? I would bet you, of prospective voters, it's much higher than just 64% that want to see these contests. So Theresa May's not going to do them. Well, I think she's in for a bit of a surprise. I think ITV will just go ahead with the debate and empty chair her. And I saw David Dimbleby, who has been around doing debates for a few years for the BBC, virtually saying the same thing. I think the leaders' debates are going to happen with or without Theresa May, and I think it would damage her credibility not to be a part of it. And I think, to be honest with you, the public would feel diddled if the Prime Minister, who had called this election, to much to the surprise of everybody, was not prepared to go head-to-head, especially against Jeremy Corbyn, the leader of Her Majesty's opposition. Well, at least for now. Anyway. But back to the main question. I'm going to Matthew in Leicester. Will Brexit, Matthew, dominate your thinking when it comes to your vote on June 8th?
No, in a short answer.
Fair enough.
But yes. To be honest with you, I'm in a massive quandary at the moment. And the biggest quandary I've got is I am a fully signed up member of the Red Club. I am a Labour man through and through, always have been, and I genuinely do not feel that I can vote Labour this time round. At a local level, I don't feel that my local MP, who is also a Labour man, really has our interests at heart. And I'm not going to name him, but I think his recent press things over the last year probably show that.
I think I might know the chap you're talking about, yeah. Was it let's get this party started, is that right?
Yeah, let's go along with that.
Yeah, for those listeners that know what I'm talking about, you can smile along. For those that don't, I'm not going to go there. But Matthew,
tongue in cheek.
But I mean, ignoring perhaps his own circumstances, what is wrong with your Labour Party? Tell me.
Okay, so I don't think there is any clear leadership in any direction at the moment. It's pulling itself apart. And from the meetings that I have attended, there is a lot of unrest. Everyone within the party genuinely believes that come the 9th of June, Jeremy Corbyn will be resigning. Mm-hmm. And, you know, from the general feedback that I'm getting, you know, with the work that I do, I think it could be a close election, but not necessarily in the way that people think it's going to go. You know, the SNP, I think they're going to lose quite a few MPs because I know Scotland are very, very uneasy at the moment.
Yeah.
So that could be very interesting how that turns out. The Lib Dems, yeah, okay.
They'll bounce a bit, won't they? I mean, they will bounce a bit.
They are going to bounce up a little bit.
But Matthew, please,
are going to have their say.
Matthew, I've asked 2 or 3 times tonight already, and perhaps you as a paid-up Labour man can help me. Please, somebody explain to me, maybe you can do it, what is Corbyn's policy on Brexit at this election?
As a fully paid-up Labour man, I wish I had the answer. However, the general gist of it is, and you know, from what I know, and I may be speaking out of turn here, but I doubt it very much so, is that the Labour Party are not going into this election having Brexit as their main point of view.
Sure, I get that. I get that. And I saw that today. Matthew, at the dispatch box. But, I mean, you know, we've got callers ringing in saying Brexit's not the major issue for them and others saying that it is. Clearly, it will be the dominant issue in this election. And for the leader of the opposition, for us to simply not know, surely is a disastrous place to start.
I think it's a very bad move, and I think his whole stance on the Brexit was a very, very bad stance, and that's automatically got him on the back foot.
Yeah.
He hasn't bounced back, and he hasn't actually said, do you know what, right, let's get on with it. We are doing Brexit. This is the way we're going to go.
Matthew, tell me this. How much trouble is Labour in?
I think I might be stopping my direct debit soon.
Fair enough. Matthew, thank you very much indeed for your call. And if the opinion polls are to be believed, there are a lot of people like Matthew out there. Stephen in Maidstone, how are you going to vote and why? Will Brexit dominate it? Good evening.
Brexit will dominate it to a point. I think the future direction of the United Kingdom and the obviously negotiations around Brexit are going to shape our country for decades to come. And I think it would be foolish for anybody to come forward and try to argue otherwise. Nigel, I'll be voting for Theresa May at the general election. Reason being, I was previously a supporter of yourself and UKIP. But I feel that the Conservatives have very cunningly taken a lot of strong and decent UKIP policies, particularly around grammar schools, which is a strong advocate of. And I think that Theresa May, I'd like to say, on behalf of the whole entire Conservative Party, thank you very much for Jeremy Corbyn. We're looking forward to the general election. We're looking forward to a romping landslide majority. Looking like it'll be in the region of upwards of 140 seats.
Sure.
So good news on that front.
I mean, Stephen, your basic point, I've listened to some of those speeches that Theresa May's given over the course of the last 6 or 8 months, and I thought, goodness me, that's exactly what I've been saying for the last 20 years, and often been slagged off for. But I wonder, Stephen, does she actually, really, genuinely mean it?
Nigel, I do genuinely think that she means it. I do. I think that she's, you mentioned to previous callers, where Theresa May's not had any issues in getting, what she wants through Parliament today. But we don't know what's not on the agenda today that could be on the agenda tomorrow. There's going to be a number of things that she wants to pass through Parliament that she isn't willing to bring to the table at the current moment.
Stephen, she's convinced you, and you've made that very clear. You see her as a very sincere person. I thank you for the call. And a text here, Nigel, this second referendum, as he sees it, is breaking my heart, as after 40 years of voting for Labour, I'm going to have to vote Tory to ensure Brexit continues. Lee from Kent. Lee, it may well be people like you up and down this country, and I suspect particularly in the Midlands and the north of England, that actually determine just how big Theresa May's majority is going to be. Right now, you're listening to the Nigel Farage Show exclusively on LBC. It's 7:45.
This is LBC.
Hi, I'm Chris from Network Rail, with important news if you're travelling by rail this May bank holiday. To deliver our railway upgrade plan, we're doing essential improvement work between the 29th of April and the 1st of May, and your journey may be affected. We don't want to inconvenience you, but we need to do this work when the railway's less busy. So please keep your plans on track and check before you travel at nationalrail.co.uk/May. Thanks for your patience. Network Rail, working for you.
Here at the Claims Guys, we'd like to offer this assurance to anyone worried by the deadline on PPI claims. There is still time to make your claim. Our experts will work fast to discover if you were ever sold PPI. And once we've completed your free PPI check, you can then pursue your own claim or let us do it for you. It's your choice. Even if you can't find any paperwork, just text the word EASY to 60777 and let the Claims Guys do the rest. Text EASY to 60777 now.
The Claims Guys.
Become a local hero like Chris. He's an electrician. He joined Local Heroes, an online service that matches customers with trusted plumbers, electricians and heating engineers.
Local Heroes send me the jobs and I take the ones that work for me. Plus it's really easy to use and free to join.
Chris is right. There's no sign-up fee. Dodgy lights, leaky taps, no heating. There's a local hero for that, and you could be one of them. Visit localheroes.com and join hundreds of trusted tradesmen. Local Heroes, a British Gas innovation.
And now, the rest of that true story from Aldermartin, Baines and Cuthbert. After a fire at a residential development in 2015, the insurance loss adjusters were looking for an excuse not to pay out. But the experienced input and correct health and safety paperwork provided by ABC meant that a full and satisfactory settlement was quickly negotiated. No fuss, no hassle. For block management, ABC Estates will give your story an ending that'll make you as happy as Larry. Find out more at abcestates.co.uk or call 0800 888 6688.
Oh, the garden's an absolute mess. It's my turn to have the cross-stitch crew round for tea and Battenberg. I'll have to get a landscape gardener in and a wildlife expert. It's a jungle out there. We could be eaten alive by those deadly flutterbugs. Oh, relax, relax. It's Trust a Trader. Marvellous local tradespeople who've been tried, tested and reviewed. All specialists in their areas, from landscape gardening to pest control. Oh, visit trustatrader.com.
Trustatrader.com.
Coming up at 8 on LBC, Clive Bull.
As the campaigning gets underway and pollsters predict a massive win for Theresa May, is the result of the general election already a foregone conclusion?
Clive Bull on LBC.
This is the Nigel Farage Show on LBC, and I'm asking you, should Brexit be the deciding factor when it comes to your vote in this election that is happening on June the 8th? And on Facebook, Maha says, Corbyn, the only genuine politician out there. Yeah, there are people that believe that. Dan asks me, will you stand as an independent? Why? Won't anybody else have me? Zane says, do you think the young person vote will be a deciding factor? No, Zane, they'll stay at home. And then, when they don't like the result, they'll protest in Parliament Square. We saw all of that last year. I'm going to ask Carol. Carol in Sleaford, Lincolnshire. You're on LBC. Carol, tell me, what is going to dominate your thinking in terms of your vote?
Good evening, Nigel. It's going to be 100% Brexit.
Yep.
I've been a Brexiteer for 40 years.
Right.
And thank you so much for everything you did. I voted UKIP in our local by-election.
Yep.
I voted UKIP in the Europeans. I will be voting for Theresa May. I'll be holding my nose and voting for Theresa May because I think, looking at it, we need to keep out Tim Farron, the SNP,
yep,
and Corbyn. So it's a tactical... Well, it makes no difference in my constituency. But the point I wanted to make was, I think UKIP have a massive role to play in this because they need to target very clearly where they're going to go.
Yep.
And not to go and let Labour into Tory seats or Lib Dems in.
Carol, I don't think, I mean, come on, be honest. The UKIP vote in 2015 in the general election hurt Labour. I very much doubt, in fact, I'm certain there would not have been a Tory majority had it not been for the impact of the Labour vote. So I'm not worried about that, Carol. What I am interested in, and yeah, you're right, you know, where UKIP targets its resources, it's going to need to be selective about that. But the thing that interests me is that what Theresa May has been selling over the course of the last few days is if you don't vote for me, there'll be this beastly coalition of people against me who will stop Brexit from happening. And it clearly, that messaging is sinking in. Numerically, Carol, unless there is the most dramatic change in the polls we've seen in any of our lifetimes, she is going to win a very big majority, whatever happens.
Well, I hope she does, and I hope she delivers. And don't forget, if she doesn't, we'll hold her accountable.
Absolutely right. And Carol, it's nice to talk to somebody who's been a Brexiteer for even longer than I have, and I thank you. I'm going to ask Howell in Bangor, what is going to make your mind up in this general election? Is it Brexit, or is it something else?
It'll be mostly Brexit, Nigel.
Yes. OK, and how do you... I mean, were you a Remainer, a Leaver?
I was a Remainer.
Yep.
As such, I can't side with Corbyn because he's pushing through hard Brexit. He's being pretty supine on the issue.
Well, yeah, I'm going to say, isn't the point how we don't really know where he stands on the issue, do we?
Well, he allowed the triggering of Article 50, which doesn't obviously set out exactly how Brexit will work, but it's following the general tenor of what Theresa May's been saying. He's just kind of gone along with it.
But as a Remainer,
yes.
you know, the result was the result. Article 50 had to be triggered at some point, didn't it?
I think a proper discussion and a proper referendum deal that wasn't cheapened by stunts like such as yourself should have been run again in another referendum before we triggered Article 50.
Well, we could argue that. We could argue that every general election things were said on both sides that weren't right, couldn't we?
Yes, that's true. I think it's particularly venomous in the case of the referendum, and particularly poisonous.
Well, I'm afraid that it was. At least I thought it was, until I went to America and saw the battle between Clinton and Trump, which was even more vicious and venomous and unpleasant. And perhaps that's just the world we're living in now with social media and everything else. But tell me, as somebody, I mean, you're clearly an absolutely staunch Remainer. So how does that manifest itself in this election on the 8th of June?
Well, to be honest with you, what I'm wondering is people are prophesying the breakup of the EU anyway within the next few years, and I'm just wondering, could we not have brought this about in a more multilateral, negotiated way rather than pitch ourselves into sort of wild uncertainty that we have now? I know you're going to argue the economy hasn't tanked or what have you, or at least I think you're going to say that, but the pound is, of course, falling. And
Good. I want the pound down, absolutely. I want the pound down. But Hal, I'm not rerunning the referendum. I'm asking you, as a Remainer...
I think you'll find this will be done in this election.
But I'm asking you, as a Remainer, you know, do you just stay at home on June the 8th, or do you feel as a Remainer you can influence this by voting for somebody?
Well, I know the local Plaid Cymru candidates, and I believe what they stand for, and Wales needs to batten down hatches extraordinarily against this being cut adrift by Westminster, which is inevitably going to happen, so I'll be going with Plaid Cymru most likely. OK. Hal, I thank you very much for your call. Hal, who sounds very down about the referendum and everything that's happened ever since, but, you know, for every one of him, there's quite a few people who are feeling quite chirpy and jolly. I wonder whether that applies to Jessica in Woking. Good evening, Jessica.
Oh, hello.
Hi there. So how are you going to vote and why, Jessica?
Well, I don't really discuss how I'm going to vote, but
right.
I've just wanted to bring up that maybe, like, Brexit isn't the determining factor for everyone. Like, when you're a public sector worker, you're feeling the full effect of a Conservative government at the moment, and actually that's probably going to have the biggest effect on all the public sector votes. We're all under strain, and it's going to make people vote other ways.
Well, it may do, Jess. I mean, it's very interesting that Jeremy Corbyn was talking about this today at the dispatch box in Prime Minister's Questions, and clearly he wants it to be an issue in the campaign. And he's basically saying that austerity has failed, that because of austerity, public sector workers in particular are not earning what they'd like to earn. The difficulty with that argument, Jessica, is how on earth can you call it austerity when, since the Tories took over, firstly a coalition, now their own government, the national debt has more than doubled. So we're not actually living in austerity at all. We're actually living beyond our means anyway.
Yeah, but what you're forgetting is that the public sector workers don't go into the public sector for money. It's not the wages that are on everyone's mind. It's their ability to do the job. You know, I know of teachers without books for children to write in. You know, it's there's a national debt. I don't know what it's being spent on. Like, it's not going into the places it needs to be put. Well,
one of the problems, Jessica, is the population has risen so sharply that when it comes to schools and hospitals and all the rest of it, there are simply a lot more people in need of that service. I mean, Jessica, how do you... I mean, OK, you don't go into specific, but, you know, do you feel, as a public sector worker, that this government is giving you a rotten deal?
Absolutely.
Thank you very much, Jessica. You've made your point, and it's people like you that Jeremy Corbyn will be talking to over the course of the next 6 weeks. Of that, there is no doubt at all. Tom in Greenwich, is Brexit going to determine your vote?
Yeah, my opinion is on Jeremy Corbyn. We're missing the point here.
Yep.
The guy was on Cameron's side with Brexit. You keep mentioning genuine. Genuine keeps coming up. We're thinking of Jeremy Corbyn when we're talking about genuine. We can see that he wants the best for the NHS. He wants the best for our teachers, the schools. He doesn't want to show up and come up in a nice suit and try and display, his trade. He wants the best for us. You come back to genuine with Theresa May.
Well,
I like to believe she's got a lovely smile, but...
Tom, I get your point, and there are people, and I've tried to be as fair as I can in reading out their messages and taking the calls. There are people who think that Jeremy Corbyn is a very genuine, decent guy. The trouble is, Tom, for 33 years, every single time there was a vote in the House of Commons on the European Community and then European Union and European treaties, he voted against it every single time, and then in the referendum, in a lukewarm way, backed Remain. Is that a genuine politician, Tom?
Well, things change, Nigel. It wasn't always. Yeah,
well, do you know what? Actually, at the end of the day, they're all career politicians, aren't they? Tom, I thank you very much. I thank all of you for your messages and calls. I've got through as many as I possibly could over the course of the last hour. And my final thought on this question of should Brexit be the deciding factor in this general election, it has to be. It's got to be, because it affects absolutely everything. It affects the numbers of people coming into Britain. It affects what trade deals we're going to do with the rest of the world. It affects the legislation on small companies, on everything else. And it is the biggest constitutional question we've been asked to vote on in our lifetimes. To me, the question is Theresa May absolutely a genuine convert to the Brexit cause, or is she just playing a game of political advantage? We'll be discussing this over the course of the next few weeks. You've been listening to The Nigel Farage Show on LBC. I'm back tomorrow evening from 7. Coming up at 10, it's Ian Collins. But up next, it's Clive Bull.
Nigel, thank you. And at 9 o'clock, it's your chance for some free legal advice.